Hosea chapter 3, it's a short chapter that illustrates a word we often use when we talk about salvation. It's the word redemption. The word redemption is the idea of buying back. So something belongs to you, then something is lost, and something is bought back. And in particular, it's the idea of being bought back from slavery. And what has happened here is that Hosea's wife has done the unthinkable. She has left him, not just for another man, but to become a prostitute. She gives herself away to many other men, and no doubt breaking her husband's heart in the process. But what we find in chapter 3 of Hosea is that she's in some kind of situation, very likely slavery, where she's become the property of another. And so God tells Hosea to go and to love her despite her gross sin. What he does here is he pays the price. If you look in verse 1, God says, "Go and love a woman beloved of her friend, yet an adulteress." And then we go on and we see that he, according to the love of the Lord toward the children of Israel. So again, this is illustrating how much God loves Israel. Even though they were unfaithful to him, he loved them and he went for them. They looked to other gods and they loved flagons of wine. They were going to these heathen temples and they were drinking wine and committing all sorts of immoral sexual sins as part of the worship of these false gods. And yet God goes to them and he finds them and he loves them. And so here we see verse 2, he bought her to me for 15 pieces of silver. So whatever had happened, Hosea's wife had become someone else's property, and he actually goes and pays the price to free her, which again pictures how God was going to free Israel and how God frees us from our sin, that we become enslaved and ensnared to sin and we cannot free ourselves, but yet God comes and pays the price ultimately with Jesus' blood to free us from the bondage of our sin. And God then says here in verse 3 through Hosea, he says, "Thou shalt abide for me many days. Thou shalt not play the harlot. Thou shalt not be for another man, so I will be for thee." So he says, no longer are you going to live this type of life. And that should challenge us as Christians. When God saves us, we belong to him. He's created us, and then he redeems us. He buys us back. And how dare we go out and live in ways that don't please him? How dare we love other things when he's done so much for us? We belong to him now. We are bought with a price. Israel was going to go through a period where they would be without a king, without a prince, when they were taken away as captives. But then he says afterward in verse 5, they will return, and they will seek the Lord their God and David their king. They shall fear the Lord and his goodness in the latter days. And what a beautiful picture of God's grace to them, and what a beautiful thing it is that God will come to us when we have stooped as low as anyone could go, when we have worshipped other things, we've gone our own way. God will come. He sent Jesus into this world to rescue and redeem us, and may we live for him, may we be loyal to him, may we accept his love and serve him. And so I hope you'll take some time to think about how God has redeemed you, and that you will live for him the freedom that he desires you to have.